Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. So, the inmates are now running the asylum using the FBI as their version of brown shirts. Gina Carano called it months ago. And finally, is Trever Noah based? But before we get started, how about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. From Jack Posobiec, breaking FBI search warrant unsealed in Alaska couple case suggests an airline flight crew may have named woman weeks later after dispute over mask regulations. Here's a photo of this woman on January 6th. And here's a photo of the woman inside the Capitol building. Look, they both have black puffy coats and wavy hair, so it must be the same person, right? Right? Wrong. Earrings don't match up. She's not wearing the scarf. She has a gaiter and a mask. This person wasn't wearing a mask. Look at those hoop earrings. Look, she's not wearing hoop earrings. Yet the FBI confirmed it was her, and I'll cover that here in a second. But let's look at the search warrant. Section 39, paragraph 39. On February 17, 2021, Marilyn Huper and Paul Huper were identified by Alaska Airlines flight crew as non-compliant passengers. Paul and Marilyn refused to follow mask regulations and were banned from flying with Alaska Airlines. That should have been the end of the story, right? The Alaska Airlines flight crew should have just been like, okay, we did our jobs. We got these problematic customers off our service. But they didn't stop there because they're losing their minds. These woke leftists are out of their damn minds. On February 24, 2021, the FBI was contacted by the redacted. Witness 1. Witness 1 advised, in addition to the mask policy violation committed by both Paul and Marilyn, Witness 1 provided the FBI with an Instagram photograph from Paul's posts. So, not only did they kick him off the plane, which they were justified to do so, then they doxed them. They went through their social media and found a photograph of the woman. Additionally, Witness 1 searched the FBI's tip line in reference to the Capitol riot and believed the woman in photograph 225A and B resembled Marilyn Huper by matching the exact description of Huper dressed in the same clothing and purse from Paul Huper's Instagram post. Photographs A and B were taken from inside the Capitol past the barriers. So, not only did they go through this couple's social media accounts, then they went to the FBI's tip line, dug through hundreds, if not thousands of photographs so they can get back at them, because those anti-maskers must be re-educated. They must be thrown in jail. They must all be terrorists. This is a cult. And this is being celebrated by the left. You're ruining people's lives because you're a part of a cult. They say QAnon is a cult. And sure, there are people that are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in QAnon. Don't get me wrong. Yet you see people walking around in literal plastic cubes in grocery stores. There was a video on Twitter that was trending the other day of a lady. Basically, it looks like a shower stall that's just surrounded by plastic with arm sleeves, and she was wearing dishwashing gloves so she can go grocery shopping. You have flight crews, presumably from Alaska Airlines, presumably, doxing their customers that they do not like, saying, well, this seems like a close match of a Capitol riot, sir. So we're going to give their information to the FBI. We're going to spend presumably hours digging through their Instagram, digging through their social media. I'm sure that this is probably against policy. And then we're going to spend another couple hours going through FBI's tip line and then find it and then gather all that information together and hand it to the FBI. Just because we don't like these MAGA people. We don't like Trump supporters, because Trump supporters don't believe in our false God. Sounds like a cult, guys. Be one of us or we chop your head off. Sounds like a cult. But don't tell them it's a cult, because that's just hateful. Jumping over to Anchorage Daily News. Tipsters' social media post led FBI to search Homer woman's home for links to Capitol riot. 2 anonymous tipsters, an Instagram post, and a photo comparison led the FBI to break down the door of a Homer couple's home last week, according to a search warrant unsealed Wednesday. The FBI had hoped to find a laptop stolen from the office of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi during the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol by supporters of then President Donald Trump. Rioters invaded the Capitol in an attempt to disrupt the certification of Joe Biden's win in the November presidential election, and federal law enforcement officers have pursued charges against hundreds of people accused of participating in the insurrection that left 5 people dead. Notice how that's down from 6. Or actually, should it be 4? Was Brian Sicknick number 5? But he died the next day from an unrelated stroke, so technically it should be 4. Or are they counting the people who committed suicide? But from my understanding, correlation does not mean causation. I don't know. From my understanding, only 4 people died that day. 2 people died from a heart attack, 1 person died from a drug overdose, and the 4th person was murdered by Capitol Police. So 4 people should be dead. Brian Sicknick should not be included in this. Paul and Marilyn Huber attended a pro-Trump rally that preceded the riot and went to the Capitol but never entered the building, they said, attributing the FBI search to a case of mistaken identity. The FBI search warrant says its interest in the Hubers, who own the Homer Inn and Spa, began in February when an unnamed tipster informed the FBI about an Instagram post by Paul Huber. That post, made on January 10th, shows Marilyn from behind walking upstairs toward the U.S. Capitol while wearing a puffy black coat. Paul's caption said in part, Marilyn approaching the Capitol as patriots. There's a righteous revolution to take back our country. Keep praying. We are only getting stronger and will not quit till our country is restored. To be there was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Let's see what they redacted. To be surrounded by a million patriots who love this country is something I will never forget. Stop the steal. So I don't really know why they left out that last sentence, because I think that's important, especially for context. On Wednesday, Paul Huber said, by no means do I condone the bad players who went into the Capitol. He said when he referred to a righteous revolution, he was referring to his hope that the country allows more individual freedoms. I was excited to see a million people there protesting the results of the election. The couple said the photo was taken around 3:30 p.m. We were told we can go in, but that sounded like a really bad idea. She said she was surprised when she arrived at the Capitol and was told by fellow Trump supporters that they could go into the Capitol. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, you just get in that line there. There's the line. Just get in line. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to do that. There's people coming out with blood on them and stuff. The tipster contacted the FBI on February 24th in connection to a February 17th incident in which the Hubers were banned from flying on Alaska Airlines because they failed to follow masking rules. We can confirm the Hubers were banned in February due to non-mask compliance. Alaska and federal policies requires all guests to wear masks throughout their journey. As a policy, we do not comment on the status of individual passengers or related federal investigations. Yet they dox their consumers and report them to the FBI. The Hubers need to be suing Alaska Airlines. They need to be suing the FBI for kicking down their door. And I'll tell you why here in a bit. It's a little bit farther down in the article. The unnamed FBI tipster said Marilyn Huber looked like a woman seen in surveillance camera video and third-party video from within the Capitol. And this is also a constitutional violation. An unnamed tipster? No. So the right of the criminally accused has the right to face their accuser. If they're being accused by somebody who works on behalf of Alaska Airlines, they deserve to know a name or at least an affiliation. That way they can sue them for mistakenly reporting them, for harassment, for emotional distress caused by the FBI kicking down their door, or defamation or slanderous defamation of character, right? And slander. If this was written and spoken, defamation and slander, defamation of character. You're claiming that this person is a domestic terrorist, someone who wanted to stop the peaceful transition of power. That sounds like defamation of character, especially since they're small business owners. In those images, an unidentified woman is seen entering Pelosi's office and disconnecting cables from a laptop, which is then removed from its desk by an unidentified man. So you'd have two defamation cases against both the United States government by Alaska Airlines and the person who pointed the finger at the woman. That woman was wearing a black puffy coat similar to the one Huber wore, and she had a similar hairstyle. I have a black puffy coat like that. That's the only thing I had that resembled hers, and somehow they managed not to take that. It's almost like the case with Rudy Giuliani, where Rudy Giuliani said, "Hey, I have this hard drive with Hunter Biden committing crimes. Like there's crimes, evidence of crimes that are on this hard drive." Yet the FBI said, we're not going to take it. But then Giuliani says, well, you're supposed to take everything. Well, we're not going to take that. It's getting weird. The FBI doesn't actually care about justice. They care about enforcing what the Democrats tell them to enforce. When questioned during the FBI's search of her home April 28th, Huber said she noted that the woman resembled her, but pointed out key differences in their appearance. The warrant says the woman in the Capitol was wearing a distinctive metal thumb ring. Huber says she doesn't own one or doesn't wear one. According to the warrant, the FBI compared the surveillance images to the photo from Huber's driver's license and confirmed, quote unquote, it was her. A second tipster who said they knew Huber personally contacted the FBI on March 23rd and confirmed she is the person in photographs 225A and B, the warrant said. Well, it sounds like the Hubers need new friends. The warrant does not include any cell phone location data showing them inside the Capitol. Other FBI warrants related to the January 6th riot have included such data because there was no evidence that they were actually in the Capitol. This is just intimidation. If you support MAGA, if you support Trump, or conversely, if you don't believe that certain things are legitimate, if you don't believe in the power of the government, if you don't do what we say, if you don't do what we tell you to do, you are next. You will be put on a list, and we will find a reason to imprison you and re-educate you. We will take away your right to vote because you will be a felon. This is how I believe that the Democrats will ensure that they win every victory. They will go after conservatives. They will go after non-Democrats, because you see this happening in Portland. You see this happening in Seattle, where they drop all charges from these Democrat protesters, these Antifa people who are burning down police stations, ICE facilities, assaulting police. They're just dropping charges. Because if you charge them, if they are convicted, they lose their right to vote. So, to combat this, they're going to go after Trump supporters who maybe jaywalked and then mouthed off to the cop saying, are you kidding me, dude? Really? A jaywalking ticket? Oh, you're resisting arrest. Now you're going to go to jail for 6 months and you can no longer vote. So that takes away a vote away, or that takes a vote away from a Republican candidate, netting +1, or technically +2 to Democrats. I think that's what they're going to do. Jumping over to Jack Posobiec once again. Now, Juror 52 is saying he doesn't remember wearing or owning the George Floyd shirt. This is what I mean. The inmates are running the asylum. Be ashamed if someone found his YouTube account that shows him wearing it on his podcast. Mitchell said the picture was posted by his uncle and that he doesn't remember wearing or owning the shirt. Funny, because on October 19th, 2020, the Wholesome Podcast, episode 70, How Do You Feel About Dating Someone Who Is Abstinent? Here he is sitting wearing a Martin Luther King shirt that says, get your knee off our necks, BLM. This October 19th, what is that, 2 months after the October 28th event that he attended? So he doesn't own a shirt that he wore 2 months after it was originally photographed that he owned the shirt. He must have borrowed it for a really long time. I don't want to say mean things about somebody who may be mentally incompetent at this point. And if he is mentally incompetent, then Derek Chauvin should get a new trial, because you can't have R-word people on the jury. if you are mentally incompetent to the point where you don't even know what clothes you wear, if mommy and daddy have to pick out clothes for you because you are too incompetent to wipe your own butt and to dress yourself, then you have no place on a jury on a murder trial. And Chauvin deserves a new trial with a competent jury. And in my opinion, this needs to take place in Amish country because they're probably the only community in the country that have no idea about what's happening. Because, not to make jokes about Amish people, but they're probably not keeping up with social justice warrior narratives. Gina Carano, and this goes back to the FBI. The Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? Let's change some words in this. Trump supporters were beaten in the streets, not by Antifa, but by their neighbors, not by the federal government, but by their neighbors, even by their children, or even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where the federal soldiers could easily round up thousands of MAGAs, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being MAGA. How is that any different from hating someone for their religious views? I know that was kind of clumsily done, but I did it to make a point. Gina Carano was right. In order for the government to be able to do unspeakable evils, they need to convince their population, their easily brainwashed population, into hating the other. If you're not part of the cult, then you are the enemy, and we will destroy you at all costs because you're a risk to the cult. Being woke, this critical theory nonsense, your critical race theory, your critical gender theory, your critical math theory, your critical education theory, is a cult. And no matter the cost, you will protect your cult. No matter what you are asked to do by your cult leaders, you will do it. You will mistakenly report people to the FBI so the FBI can kick down their door and throw them in a jail cell without parole for months or years waiting for a trial so they can be re-educated. So you can destroy them. But I don't think this cult realizes that once you start attacking the other will rise at one point. And you see millions of veterans just quietly sitting around. You have millions of war veterans just sitting around. Even if they were not shooters, they're still trained in squad tactics. They know how to clear a room, or they could be easily taught. They understand a rank structure. Eventually, you're going to wake up a beast that won't go back to bed. And I don't think these woke leftists are ready for what's about to awaken. And finally, a based Trever Noah. Let's give it a listen.
The really frustrating thing about this chart is that they've spent 5 months telling us to get vaccinated. Oh, get vaccinated, and this will all be over. Get vaccinated. And I was like, great, I'll get all the 4 vaccines if it means I'll get my life back. But now they're putting out a chart, and it says even if you get vaccinated, you can only do 2 more things without a mask on? 2? Guys, what the hell? The shit you're saying to people is incoherent. You're telling us these new vaccines are 95% effective and will stop coronavirus, but we still can't do anything without a mask on anyway. Which is it? Is this one of the most effective vaccines in the history of the world, or does it not work? It's not clear messaging, especially if you're desperately trying to convince people to get the vaccine. Can you imagine if every time you ordered an Uber, said, oh, your Uber's coming in 5 minutes, but maybe also get a Lyft, just in case. I mean, the really frustrating thing about this chart.
And he's not wrong. It's one of the few times where I'll say Trever Noah's not wrong. It's really hard to convince people who are vaccine hesitant to get a vaccine if nothing is going to change. Well, why am I going to do something? Why am I going to wear my seatbelt if I'm still going to die in a car accident? If seatbelts didn't work? And that's still a bad example. What would be a good example? Why should I pay my taxes if the government is still not going to fix the roads? I guess that would be the best example. Yet the government still arrests you. And there's a potential that the government may arrest you if you don't go through getting your vaccine at some point. But there's only one way to find out, and that's through time. But Trever Noah bringing this up will hopefully open the eyes of leftists who are really pushing hard for the vaccine and not receiving anything in return for it. They're not receiving their freedoms because the government loves the power. As soon as the government takes away your freedom, they seldom give it back. So that's going to be it for now, folks. I'll see y'all in a little bit. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Have a good one. Bye.